Hey everybody, Ryan here at eTrailer. Today on our 2023 GMC Sierra 2500, we're going to be showing you how to install the B&W custom fit gooseneck trailer hitch. But before we get into that, why don't we just take a minute, check this out, and make sure it's going to work for you. First impressions of the hitch, you can see the B&W quality right away. And if you're familiar with the towing world at all, chances are pretty good you've probably heard of the B&W name, and there's a reason for it. They make really good hitches. They fit excellent, and that holds true with this one as well. Looks good. One of the cool things about this is the fact that all the main parts are going to be underneath the bed of the truck, and they're custom fit. So it's designed to work with this pickup truck. For me, that'd give me a little more confidence pulling these big heavy trailers around, knowing I got something specifically designed for this pickup. So can't really go wrong there. But since it's all underneath, you're gonna have full bed access up here, and not taking up a lot of space. So you can still put wood and supplies and whatever you're trying to haul back here without any issues. And that's also due to the fact that the ball can be flipped over. So when you're not towing, can turn this thing over and actually keep it stored in the hitch where it's flat. Gives you a good spot to keep this. It's not going to be sitting in the garage, you forget about it, or rolling around on the back seat of your truck there. So overall, excellent fitment, and a hitch I wouldn't hesitate to use in my own truck. Just to compare this hitch to some of the others, I actually just put a Kurt hitch in one of these Sierras just a couple of weeks ago. And not gonna lie, I was actually pretty surprised how well it fit and how well it worked and everything. If you were to ask me, though, I'd still kind of lean towards the B&W, really for a couple of big reasons. The B&W, I like the locking mechanism better. It has a handle in the wheel well, which we'll show you in a sec, that's how you unlock and lock this. As opposed to the Kurt hitch, the locking mechanism is in the ball, which, in theory is pretty cool because you can turn it, you can remove it and stuff all up in the bed of the truck without having to get out and deal with that. But I could just see over time, after you get some miles on it, some grease built up in there and everything else, I could see that potentially being an issue. Don't know for sure, but that's just kind of my take on it. And with the Kurt one too, you can't store the ball in the hitch. Is that a huge deal to some people? Might be, might not, but to me, I like the idea of being able to turn the ball over and keep it back here. And that's not the case with the Kurt. So, if it comes down to it, either hitch will work just fine, but I like the smaller details that B&W focuses on and just makes things a little more user-friendly. So I mentioned that handle, so figured why not just take a look at it. It's going to be located right there in the wheel well. You can cut a little opening out, easy to get to. And when it's in the lock position, it's going to be all the way forward. And so there's a pin in the hitch that's holding that ball in there. But whenever you're ready to store it or flip it around, you just pull it out and just bump it to the left a little bit, and it'll hold itself open. So it's nice and smooth. You don't have to kind of search and look for that catch to keep it open there. You can honestly do it without thinking. If you ever do plan on towing a fifth wheel trailer, so let's say if you want to end up getting a new trailer, picking up another one that has that fifth wheel, what's pretty cool is you kind of get two underbed hitches for the price of one, and that's because this is going to be compatible with what's called the B&W Companion, which is a fifth wheel head and base essentially that will drop in and lock into place with this gooseneck hitch. So you can easily convert it really without any issues just by picking up that base and allow you to tow different types of trailers. Something I always suggest people do too whenever they set up either a gooseneck or fifth wheel is get in-bed wiring. And on these trucks it's super convenient. They actually have a dummy plug here, and this will pop out. There'll already be a hole there, and you can simply just pop your wiring in. It's plug and play. That way you can plug your trailer in back here. It's the right way to do it and not have to drape your wiring over your tailgate there and plug it into your bumper. Underneath the truck, here's just a better look at the hitch and kind of what we got going on. So like I said, everything is going to live underneath. Fits well, doesn't interfere with anything, and is a good matchup for the Sierra, to be honest with you. when it comes to goosenecks and fifth wheels and things like that, we do get a lot of people wondering, you know, are you still going to be able to use suspension enhancements like an airbag, for example? And with this one, the answer is yes. I don't see any reason why an air spring wouldn't work. Just generally speaking, how they mount up and everything, you shouldn't run into any interference issues as far as that is concerned. So if that's what you're looking to do, it should be in pretty good shape. But other than that, you know, really nice setup. As far as the installation is concerned, this one's not too bad. There's a couple points where some bolts are a little tough to get to and things like that, but overall everything went together fairly smooth, and hopefully it'll go together the same for you. But speaking of that, if you want to hang around, we'll go ahead and get started on it now. To begin our installation, we're going to be underneath the back of our truck, and you want to temporarily just lower and remove the spare tire. Gives you a lot more room to work. So I've done that, and what we can focus on now is getting this metal heat shield out of the way. To get this off, there's going to be two 13mm head bolts. So we'll pull that one out, and this one up here. And we can get this out of the way for now. Now you can move to your rear wheel wells, and if you have these liners in place, we're going to remove those, again, to give us some more room to work. There's going to be several different types of fasteners we need to pull out. In the very center here, there's this style of one. It looks like I can get a flathead screwdriver in there. I just get it removed by hand. And then on each side of that, there's going to be a plastic 10mm head nut. So we'll get both of those removed. Then you can switch out to a T15 Torx bit, and there's just going to be several of those fasteners kind of just throughout the liner. So we'll just work our way around until we get them all removed. Once you get all them fasteners out, you can just grab the liner, and this essentially just kind of pops out. So we'll work it out of position here, and once we get this one out, we're going to go ahead and do the same thing on the other side of our truck. If you look, there's going to be this exhaust heat shield underneath the truck, and while we're right here, we might as well remove it. So you're going to have a 13mm head bolt here, and then one just like it towards the front of the truck. So we'll go ahead and get that removed. Not a ton of space in here, so I find these ratcheting box wrenches work pretty good. But you know, a standard one will work as well. It'll just take you a little bit more time. So just moving more forward towards the front of our wheel well, you're going to find that other 13mm head bolt located there. Underneath the truck, at the very back of our heat shield, right on top, there's going to be another 13mm head bolt. If you follow the heat shield forward underneath the truck, you're going to have one last 13mm bolt just like the others. And this is the last one that's actually holding this heat shield in place. And finally, we can get this shield out from under the truck. At this point, we're going to let our exhaust come down a little bit. You don't always have to do this. I usually just do because it gives you more space and makes it easier in the long run. So up to you, but before we lower it down, I like to take a strap and just kind of run it from side to side. That way we can kind of at least control how fast and how far we let the exhaust come down. We're gonna have a few rubber isolator hangers that's actually holding the exhaust up. So you can spray these down with some soapy water, just makes it a little easier. And then you can take a pry bar and pry one end of the isolator hanger off. So we got that one there, and then two more up by where we put our strap. Here's those other two. And we'll use that same technique to get them removed. And with them off, you should be able to loosen up the strap some and let our exhaust come down a little ways. Up in the bed of the truck now, we can mark the location that we're going to need to drill. And pay attention because that measurement's different if you have a short or a long bed. So check the instructions for that. When you measure from the actual end of the bed. You don't want to measure from the tailgate. And if you have a bed liner, like a spray and bed liner like we do, you know, account for that thickness as well. Ours is roughly about 1/8 of an inch thick, so you can add it, you know, to that measurement. And then you want to find the center as well. So go from wheel well tub to wheel well tub, split the difference, and you can kind of eyeball it because it falls on one of these channels here. So get that all marked out and double check underneath the bottom, make sure everything's clear under there, which it is. And I'm gonna just drill a small pilot hole real quick here. And then I took a piece of plywood and cut a hole in it, my hole saw. What I like to do is kind of use that as a guide almost. You can stand on it and keep the hole saw from kind of jumping around on you. Once you get that hole drilled out, you can come back with a file or some sandpaper, whatever you got, and just clean all the sharp edges and burrs off of it. Once that's done, you can come back with some paint and put a layer over that bare metal that we exposed, help keep it protected. You can use spray paint. With these plastic bed liners or spray and bed liners, I like to use a paint stick because even if you get clear spray paint and you shoot it on top of here, you'll be able to see it a little bit. So doing it this way just gives a little cleaner install look, at least in my opinion. At this point, we can start to assemble our cross members. So we're going to do the front one first, and just kind of a reference. Say if this is facing towards the front of the truck, this will be the passenger side. So just kind of a reference point there. If you look at the cross member though, inside of the square tube, you'll see a welded seam. You're going to want that seam to face down towards the ground. And you can take one of the brackets here, and that'll line up with the holes in the cross member. And with these, from the front to the back, you can take these big bolts and push them through. What we'll do, once these holes are slotted, we'll try to center them up in there, which that looks pretty good. Take the flange nuts. We'll get these started hand tight. Take this one off, make sure we're still centered, which we are. Once we're kind of held in place so, you can come back with a 15/16 size socket and wrench and snug these down. Now you want to grab your torque wrench and torque these down to the amount specified in the instructions. Underneath the truck, we can take this deal and get it in place. So this end, this is going to set on top of the frame rail, and these holes are actually going to line up with some weld nuts that are in the frame rail, which we'll show you in a second here. And this piece is going to go just in front of this cross member here. So just in front of our hole that we drilled. So we will work this into position, just like that. So with this sitting like that, now you can take another one of these pieces and try to get it going here. Set that up like that, and lining up the holes in it with the actual cross member. You can take that same hardware combination that we used on the other end of this. Get the bolts fed through. Sometimes they will be a little tight just from the powder coating. You can hang them up a little bit. But either way, you'll get that pushed through, and then, make sure that hardware's centered, just like we did the other side, which it looks pretty good there. Take your flange nut and get it started. So if you have to, if one of them bolts gets hung up, you can always, just tighten it down by hand, or if it's even too tight, you can take a hammer, just kind of tap it. That'll push it right through. And get the other nut started. We can assemble our rear cross member now, and this is essentially the same exact deal, as the front one. So the welded seam went down towards the bottom, brackets are the same. With the back one, you want the heads of the bolts to be towards the back of the truck, so put them in this way. Leave them hand tight for now, don't snug them down and torque them just yet. And now we can work on getting this underneath the truck. We're gonna take our assembly here and put this one into position. So we're gonna put it behind the hole. And I'm just gonna get this ready here. Metal is pretty heavy. I'll get that roughly in place and get our hardware through. Same flange nuts on the other side. Now we're able to put together our center section, and depending on your bed length, that's gonna determine which way this is gonna set, right? So this cutout here, since we have a short bed, that's going to face towards the front of the truck. So this will be the front of the truck, this will be the back of the truck. If you had a long bed, it'd be the other way around, like that. So either way though, just make sure you have it positioned right. This latch mechanism is gonna work up the same. So with this being the front of the truck, this will be our driver's side, right? And that's where we want the handle. So if we look, there's gonna be this opening in there. There's that round hole. That pin is gonna go through there. And then the holes in this are gonna line up with those square slots, right? And then you can take the carriage bolts, make sure it's same size, because there's a third one in there, I believe, for the handle, and it's a little bit shorter. So just make sure you got those that match up. Those are gonna drop through, and then you can take the nuts and get them started. I'm gonna lift this up here. come back with a 1/2-inch socket and tighten them down. Now we can grab our center section and get it put in place. There's going to be these big bolts that pass through our cross members into this, and you'll put a plate, a support plate that goes across. For now though, doing this by myself, I'm just going to put the bolts through to hold it, and then we'll come back and pull them out and get the plate in there. But this is going to line up here. Take our bolts and get them through. So I was able to get this up in there, and like I said, I just took the bolts and pushed them through all 4 corners. That way this is supporting itself. And what I think I'm gonna do, go up in the bed and make a support device. That way it'll kind of suck this up tight against the bottom of the bed, and it'll hold it in position. That way we can get our bolts pulled out and get the plates, the reinforcement plates put on, and all the hardware back installed. In the bed here, I got our support apparatus made. Pretty simple, couple blocks, 2x4 it runs across. I took a strap and connected each end to the pin that runs across there in our hitch, and then just pulled this up tight. And what that's gonna do is, you know, kind of center it in the hole and keep it where it needs to be, flat up against the truck bed. That way it won't shift on us or anything like that when we're getting the rest of our hardware in. Back underneath the truck now, we're gonna be on our rear cross member. At this point we can get the hardware out and get the support piece in. I'm just gonna do this one at a time. Even though we have our, you know, supporting apparatus up top, I'd rather nothing shift on us, so I'm gonna pull one bolt out, put it through, push it back through, and we can pull the other one out, get it through, and then on the back side of those bolts, we'll take our flange nuts and get them started. Once we have both of these started, I'm going to do the same exact thing for our front cross member. You can move to your wheel wells now, and what we're going to do is attach the cross members to our actual frame rails. It's a little tricky to see, but the holes in our cross members are going to line up with some weld nuts that are in the frame from the factory. And so you take these bolts and get them started. So I was able to get all of these started in place and hand tight. And sometimes they'll fight you, you know, they just won't line up perfectly. And so if that happens to you, a couple things you can do. You can always take a hammer and kind of tap this one way or the other, you know, front to back to get them to line up, and kind of go from there. You know, get whatever one you can started. If you go to the next one and that wants to fight you, just try a different hole and kind of work your way around there. You know, like I said, if you have to tap it back and forth or side to side, then so be it. But by any means, don't force these in. You know, you don't want to cross-thread them. Once you get them started, you'll feel it. They'll go nice and smooth. So you want to get these started on this side, front and back, and then do the same thing on the other side of our truck. Once you have all the hardware in place and in tight, not a bad idea just to check up in the bed of the truck, make sure everything's square and you know, positioned correctly, which it should be, considering we have our device up there holding everything tight. But with that said, now we can tighten down our hardware, and there's a particular sequence that you want to use with this. You want to first start by tightening down the 4 center section bolts. So 5/16 socket and wrench, and we'll get that done. Then you want to tighten down all these bolts that will go into the frame rail. So an 18 millimeter I like to use a ratchet and a wrench. Just don't have a ton of space in here, you know. So this definitely makes it faster. But we'll go ahead and get all of these snug down. Once you have all the ones on the frame rail tight, come back underneath the truck and tighten down the 6 remaining bolts here on our cross members. With all the bolts snug down, you can come back with a torque wrench and using that same sequence that we just did, tighten down all the hardware to the amount specified in the instructions. Now we can get our handle in, and to be able to get the bolt and stuff through, we're gonna have to pull this out. So undo the apparatus from up top in the bed if you haven't already. Get that out of the way because we're not gonna need it anymore. But this, be real careful when you're doing this. Pull it out and then lock it. You can turn it and lock it in place. And then your handle here, it's gonna line up with that square hole in it. You can take this carriage bolt, go through the square hole, through the handle, and then you'll have a nut you can put on the other side. We'll run this down, and using a 1/2 inch, we can snug it up. Get this secure. And we can release that back in. In our center section, on each side of it, you're gonna have 2 holes, and we're gonna use those as guides for our safety chain loop. So we'll take an 11/16 drill bit and drill out all 4 of them. So up in the bed, I did the same thing to these holes that we did for the big one. You know, just filed them down, made them smooth, painted them up, let that paint dry, and then we can take our safety chain hoops here and drop them right on through. Back under the truck where our safety chain bolts drop down, on each end of it, you can take a spring, place a spring over it, one of the nuts, get that started. Hand tight, and then you're just going to run these down until they're flush with the bottom of the U-bolt. And a 15/16 socket. Tighten it up until it looks about like that. At this point, I went ahead and rehung our exhaust and reinstalled this shield here the opposite way that we removed it. You could also put the spare tire back up. It'll fit without any issues. I'm gonna hold off on that because I'm actually doing in-bed trailer wiring as well. So I'll leave this out of the way, give us more space down here to work, which I suggest doing if that's what you're gonna be doing. On the passenger side of your truck, you can get the wheel well liner put back in opposite way. We're here on the driver's side. I got this roughly in place, but we are gonna need to trim a little bit of it because to access our handle, you know, the liner's gonna be in the way. So I'll probably just kind of eyeball it here and take a pair of snips and cut a little bit of it out. My thought is you can always cut more material out if you need to. So I'll just start small and kind of go from there. So I'll take a little bit more out and we should be in pretty good shape. So I got our liner completely reinstalled and this is the finished product here. I did trim out a little bit more material there once I kind of bolted this up, just to make it a little bit easier to be able to actually get your hand in there and operate the mechanism. And that'll finish up our look at and our installation of the B&W custom fit gooseneck trailer hitch on our 2023 GMC Sierra 2500.